Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our Take Time Tuesday of May. We're glad you're here. We're going to get started right on time because we know everyone's time is valuable this morning. So just a couple things before we get started, a couple housekeeping announcements. We are recording this presentation. We want to be able to share it later with folks that couldn't join us in person. It will be on Facebook at about noon. We're going to hopefully get it posted there at noon. We're also going to be emailing it to folks that couldn't make it this morning. So yes, you'll have a chance to rewatch later if you want to catch some of the things you might have missed. We are doing this in a webinar format, so your mic is muted, your cameras are off, and we partly just to decrease distractions. But we really want to hear from you. So please use the chat. Put some questions in there. We'll be happy to answer as we get towards the end of our time together. With that, we want to welcome you and thank you for attending our Take Time Tuesday event. My name is Tara Van Dyke. I'm the director of Sheldon House. And each month we work to increase our community's conversations around mental health and mental illness. We also work to provide opportunities for our community to support the work of Sheldon House. So we alternate every other month with a different, either an opportunity to learn and have conversations around mental health, and then an opportunity to support on alternate months. This is our Take Time Tuesday, and we are happy to be able to share some information about how our space and what surrounds us impacts our mental health. And how we feel. And today we are really thankful to have Kate here. Kate Wirt is from Moxie Life Organizing and is here to share more on this important topic and help us get started in our getting more organized. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kate. We have some slides to share, so while she's introducing ourselves, I'll get those slides pulled up here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Wirt, and I'm a professional organizer and working in the industry for roughly 6 years. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker, and I want to let you know that if you're struggling with stuff, you're not alone. We have a whole team. I was a one-woman show helping people help with their better quality of life and clearing out the clutter. We now have a team of organizers, so please know that you are not alone. I want to tell you a little bit about our service items, and one reason why we've been so successful is that we are non-judgmental. My stuff's going to look different than your stuff. Some items are going to be sentimental that for you, that may not be for me, but we want to meet people where they're at and get them be the decision makers. We offer full service, and when I say that, we can go from pretty to gritty. So we can pretty up a pantry, but we go all the way. We have no problem getting our hands dirty, even working with hoarding and squalor and other home conditions. So here are our service items. We do decluttering and organizing, streamlining and spatial planning. So zoning out, where do I put things? How are they accessible? How do I set up my kitchen? Sourcing storage solutions, that's another piece. Oftentimes we find clients will buy the products, but maybe they didn't measure first. They don't know how to use them, so we can help them with that. And then relocation and life transition services. And some people are downsizing or upsizing. I like to call right sizing. So possibly if families having babies or adding members to their family, maybe you are downsizing into a smaller community living situation. And then I want to tell you a little bit more about our senior services. So we do work privately with clients, but we also, I wrote a grant 2 years ago for organizing and coaching services. This is funded through the Kent County Senior Millage Program and supported by the Area Agency of Aging of Western Michigan. So the intention with the grant is to help older adults 60 and over with decluttering, organizing, and deep cleaning of residential homes to enhance that safety, comfort, and accessibility, also while minimizing any safety or health concerns. For this program through Kent County Senior Millage, I want to tell you a little bit about a good referral, what to expect and how this might be helpful for you. I want to make note that 60 and over, for those that qualify for services, they would have either a cost share. We work on a sliding scale, so we do look at income, but this affords you up to 15 hours annually of that organizing and coaching services. To qualify, we must live in Kent County and be 60 or older, and the goal has to be to foster that independence. We want our older adults to age in place. Again, this addresses comfort concerns and accessibility issues. So maybe you've got a walker and you've got to figure out how to make that work through your space. Also, maybe you're just feeling uncomfortable in your spaces and you need help figuring out, where do I put things? I'm stressed out with the clutter, help me. We can help you with that. And again, addressing those safety and health concerns. Ideally, we would all ask that, our clients are motivated with insight. They want the help. Maybe they don't know where to get started, and they need us, they need our brains to help them, as well as our hands to help them move things or take away items that are no longer of value to them. You can go on our website, which I'll have at the end here, to start the intake process, but you can also contact us directly at 616-777-7347. And through this, we'll complete a registration form via phone. We'll want to include some general contact info from you, do a preliminary income assessment, and ask some questions about how we can best help. This program is very popular, so please expect that there may be a wait list. And if you're interested in services, call us now and get on that wait list so we can get to you sooner. Whenever I work with clients, I always ask them, what's getting them stuck? Where are they getting stuck when, quote unquote, getting organized? And there's a no judgment zone from our area. Everybody's a little bit different. What I like to do is a mindfulness exercise, and we're going to talk about this. Please keep your eyes open, but I want you to take a look at these photos and notice your body reactions. What are you thinking inside? And then we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to give some more info about what the patterns or trends that I tend to see. Please feel free to add to chat any reactions that you have. But I'm going to say that oftentimes what I hear from clients or from the audience is that, they tend to have a negative reaction to the before photos, and it gives them maybe anxiety, a little bit of stress. And then the after photos give them a sense of calm and peace, and maybe a little bit minimize some of those that overwhelm. However, I want to make some pinpoints to this. And we're going to circle back here. So this is a pantry that I staged for the Home and Garden, or excuse me, the Parade of Homes in a new build home. Now I want to make note that when we fall into that Pinterest trap or the Instagram trap, we think that everything needs to be in these containers and laid out perfectly, quote unquote perfectly, no such thing. But I want to be real here. This is staged. This is not real life. Do you think when the family of 8 moved in, do you think that that pantry stayed that way? Absolutely not. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that over containerizing and adding more organizing tools that maybe, really aren't going to work for you. However, the pictures look great, but it's not the reality. Another reaction I want to let you know is that when people looked at the before photo of the pantry, they said, yeah, I can relate to that. Or maybe even the hoarding photo, yes, I can relate to that. These are jobs that I've worked, the chaos and, it's the clutter and it's the mess. And I do want to say that we all have different clutter thresholds. So one person may enjoy having lots of stuff, another person may be more minimalist, some may be in between. Also, we have to take into consideration with mental health, ADHD, aging, and those other situational as well as personal factors and life factors are going to make it different for everybody. So again, there's no one size fits all to getting organized. Again, we have to approach our clients from their perspective and do it from a client-centered viewpoint. It's not all or nothing, but it can get better. But one thing that is universal is stuff. And so we are going to talk about that. We all have too much stuff. And when I say we all, I mean myself, I mean maybe everybody around me, everybody you know, we all have too much stuff. I'm going to throw out some statistics. So almost half of Americans consider their homes to be at least somewhat cluttered with items they no longer use. 1 in 7 Americans have a room in their home they cannot use because it's filled with things they rarely use. And for you out there, I'm sure some of you may have that spare bedroom as an empty nester that maybe it becomes the catch-all. Maybe the basement has lost function. So again, those are some of the examples that I see. 27% of Americans spend 2 or more hours weekly looking for lost or misplaced items. And then they end up losing money because they're paying money to replace them. Can you guess what the top items are? Your phone's up there, the keys is up there, but the top one, the TV remote. So if anything today, at the end of this presentation, I want you to find a good spot and stage it for your TV remotes to save yourself some time. Again, I want to let you know that I come from a non-judgmental view. I have stuff too. I love throw pillows, and every morning I make my bed and put the throw pillows on, and every night I take them off. I have seasonal throw pillows. If my son, if we go to the home goods store, he says, he veers me away from the pillow section. He knows that this is my thing and I struggle with it. But I love my throw pillows. They're accessible, they're aesthetically pleasing. So again, it's okay to love your stuff too. However, sadly, there can be a downside to our clutter. Our stuff, it can take up our energy and our time. It can overstimulate our system, causing our senses to work overtime on things that maybe are important. It can frustrate us because it makes it hard to find things we need, and then we may end up replacing them because we cannot find them, losing time and money. It can constantly remind our brains that we still have this huge to-do list, which may make it more difficult to relax, both physically and mentally. And it can even create anxiety, depression, because the idea of sorting or quote unquote getting organized can be overwhelming. And if you're at that point where you're feeling overwhelmed, which most of my clients when they first call and contact me are, I want you to keep telling yourself it will get better. Again, it will get better. It's not all or nothing. However, there's a lot of other stuff that gets in the way. And again, a lot of this is research I've done. It's evidence-based. It's what I've seen with my clientele that I work with. The time factor. We don't make time for it. We get overwhelmed because it's a huge project. So we think, okay, well, I'm going to work on it on Saturday. I'm going to start getting organized on Saturday. Well, that's not very specific as far as making a goal that you want to accomplish. So consider it scheduling it and putting it in your calendar or in your phone and in small increments of time. So I'm talking starting with 15 to 30 minutes. Put it in your calendar and commit. Another thing, consider bucket days. One thing that I encourage folks to do is if you're working in the office at the end of the day on Friday, near the end, set a timer, give yourself 30 minutes to tidy up your desk and have yourself ready for Monday. Maybe it's paperwork. And I'm going to tell you, nobody loves paperwork. So maybe consider a bucket day. On Tuesdays, I go through all the paperwork. And then again, ask for help. Is that something where you can have an accountability partner or a body double? When we work with clients, sometimes they need us there just to hold them accountable and keep them on track. So if you have a non-judgmental friend or family member, reach out to them and see how they can help. The fear factor. Okay, a lot of my clients, they struggle with perfection. They want perfect results. They want that Pinterest photo. They want that Instagram photo. They also, a thing that gets us stuck is perfect outlets. Well, we decide, it is important to have a cause, and that can be a motivational factor for folks, such as the Sheldon House thrift sale coming out. That's a great cause that can motivate you to let go of items. However, sometimes we get stuck because we want to find the perfect outlets for different items, but they won't take everything. So again, that perfection piece, please don't let it get in the way. And oftentimes we do use specific outlets for a catch-all of where you can bring those items. And remind yourself, done is better than perfect, all right? I tell my clients that. Progress, not perfection. And then, of course, expect some anxiety and note that and take note of that. I'm going to tell you, my clients often feel anxiety during that first session. And when they let go of items that they're feeling a little bit uncomfortable with, I always check in with them afterwards and we say, you know, how are you feeling? You're a little bit anxious about that. How long did that last? Did it go away? How did you cope with that? And it does get better. And oftentimes those clients will say, you know, I worried about it for a little bit, but then I didn't think about it at all. The attachment factor, and again, this is something we all do. There's sentimental saving. They remind us of important events. We're worried that we're going to lose things from the past. It's our life legacy, our history. Some things I want you to ask yourself when you're going through that process. Am I really going to miss it? Remind yourself you're not throwing away the memory. You're not throwing away the person. And perhaps even take a photo. And that right there, that action can give you some relief. Instrumental saving, that's the just in case. I might need it in the future. And again, some questions to ask yourself. Have I used it? When was the last time I used it? Some clients like to set ground rules. Well, if I don't use it in 6 months or I don't wear it in a year, you know, maybe it needs to find a different place to go and it doesn't belong in my home. Again, if I needed it, could I find it again? Is it easily replaceable? Did it cost a lot of money? Those are some other questions to ask. Also, you know, I know we're a very individualist culture, but we try to be more collective. Is it something you could borrow from somebody or from a friend, from a neighbor? And then ultimately, maybe ask yourself, is it worth sacrificing my space for? The guilt factor. This is a huge one. These are some of the top items Americans felt guilty getting rid of. I always ask my clients, do you think that they meant for you to keep it forever? And I have a client that I was talking to, we were looking at a beautiful wool blanket that she had from her mother-in-law. And I asked her, she sat there with it. She's like, I really don't want it. It was a gift. And I said, did you mean for them to keep it forever? And she said, yes. Yes, they did. And we both kind of chuckled and we had to process through some of that because when people expect you to keep things forever, that's a form of control. And the gift is really in the giving and the action. And then ask yourself, would you buy it again? Today, if you were sitting right there, is that something that you would purchase again? And then giving yourself permission. This is a big thing we do with clients. We give them permission to keep those items. You know, if they are important to you, absolutely, that they're non-negotiable, the things you love, it's okay to keep those items. And then also the items that maybe you're feeling guilty about because you spent money on it or a family member gave it to you, also giving them permission to let it go and that it's okay. I want to make it clear that while, you know, I don't necessarily consider myself a minimalist while I'm moving that way, that is not the expectation for my clients. Our stuff can be a source of pleasure. It can be aesthetically pleasing. And we can also see our stuff as an extension of ourselves. It's part of our legacy. And that's something that's gold. When working with clients, we're able to hear some of those stories and process and unfold part of their legacy and their history. And that's very important to them. So some of it is to keep, and then once they process and they story tell and they have someone listen and give them permission to say, it's okay, let's take a photo of it, you know, to lock in that memory, in permission to let it go. A question, and so for those of you who have heard of Marie Kondo, she's big right now. She's been big for a while, and I want to let you know I came out right around when Marie Kondo came out. But for those of you who've heard the spark joy factor that are familiar with her, so you ask yourself, does it spark joy? Is this item spark joy for you? And I ask questions, do you love it? If you love it, and you're going to know right away if you love it. But then we're going to hit some question marks. So we're going to talk about that gray area. If you're still feeling stuck, we're going to give you some tips and techniques to get you started to prevent some of that overwhelm. I want you to start thinking outside the box. And we're going to talk about, you know, when we go into a project like decluttering, and I actually veer away from that term because it turns people off. They think, oh, you know, my organizer is going to come in and she's going to tell me I don't need that, I should throw that away. So we get a bad rep. And rather than looking at and talking about decluttering, I ask my clients, when I first talk with them on the phone, are you open to evaluating? And, you know, again, we lose inventory of what we have. Are you open to looking at how many pairs of shoes you have? Are you open to looking at some of those items that are in deep storage that may, you know, you may have forgotten about? And then I ask them, I want you to cast a vision for what matters to you most. How do you see yourself spending your time? How are you using your spaces? So very much so a value system. What's most important to you? And sometimes we get stuck because, you know, when we're trying to cast a vision, so maybe you want to have your grandkids over and they need play space, but there's not enough room because of the clutter. And so we're going to drive back into that motivational, that casting a vision for how your space is, how your time's being spent, and bring it back to that vision when you're feeling stuck. For those of you that have maybe tried the traditional method, maybe it's organizing by space, you're making decisions on items box by box, and so more of that decision-making process as you go, and then moving more into a micro-organizing. So then, you know, putting things back to where they may need to be. So again, this is the traditional form of organizing that many of my clients have attempted, but then get stuck. They are like, but it's too many decisions. And I'm going to tell you that decision fatigue is a real thing. When we're working on organizing, we have to think, where do I put it? How many do I have? Where do I start? What if I need it? I should probably keep it. Will I use it? Where should I take it? Should I sell it? What's it worth? Those are a lot of decisions to make. So it can be emotionally and psychologically draining for our brains. Not to mention the physical factor of lifting and bending and putting things and moving things where they need, calling out donations to your car. I want you to tell yourself, again, another mantra. We talked about the perfection. Done is better than perfect. Don't let perfect get in the way of doing good. But tell yourself the hardest part is getting started. The hardest part is getting started. And this is something I tell clients when I talk to them on the phone and the first time when we meet, you know, when we're working in this session. It's going to be a little awkward for a moment. The hardest part is getting started. But again, we want to think outside the box. It's not all or nothing. So let's talk about some different ways that you can get started that might be a little bit more manageable for you. First off, I highly recommend that you start small. Small increments of time. And I'm talking, again, we said plug it into your calendar, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Set a timer. And I use timers all the time in session. We do check-ins. We make sure, you know, to wrap things up and also make sure I'm not late picking my son up from school. But again, starting with a small increment of time, 15 minutes. And then if you feel like keeping going, great. Go on, because you'll start to feel you'll get a flow going. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to take a break. It's not all or nothing. Start with small spaces. So maybe this is maybe a drawer or one shelf or possibly, you know, the top of your table. So something small that, you know, that is a little bit more manageable. What you're going to see as you work from those small spaces, then possibly it might be things, again, if there's areas that you know there's items you're not attached to, starting in those areas, over time, you're going to snowball and that decision-making process is going to get easier and easier. Start small with narrow categories. Okay, we think, you know, we've got the traditional form of organizing, donate, sell, family and friends, all this, you know, this one's going to this family member, this one's going to that family member. So what I want you to do, or I highly suggest, is that you have 3 quick categories. You have a keep box, and you keep it in the box. You know, you love it, it's non-negotiable, it's sentimental, maybe it needs to be moved to another space. And I say that, you know, put it in the box, because what I find clients will say, oh, well, this goes in the kitchen. And then they'll wander off to the kitchen and get distracted, or this goes in the basement with holiday. And they go down to the basement and then they get distraction. So put it in your keep box and you can always find a spot for it later. Then I want you to do a don't want box. These are the things you either need to donate, you want to discard, maybe it doesn't belong to you, maybe you'd like to give it to family or friends, or possibly to sell. So again, you know you don't want it, but you're not sure what to do with it. And then you're going to hit those question marks. You're going to get stuck. A lot of that is that sentimental stuff, or possibly that, you know, maybe it was a gift, maybe you haven't used it in a long time, maybe it was important or valuable to you at some point, but maybe it doesn't have a lot of value anymore. Maybe you spent a lot of money on it. I want you to put it in a question mark box. Set that aside, okay? Again, if you're questioning it, set it aside. We talked about different lines of questioning. So you can always come back to that question mark box when you're ready and start to use that line of questioning to figure out what's the best next step. This is something I do regularly, staging a goodbye box. So I put one, right now I have one in my office. We've got something, I've got one in my bedroom. I've got a bag in my bedroom. When we're going over and we're switching over seasonal clothing, that's something where, how many times have you tried on something and you said, you know what, this isn't really working for me, I'm not gonna wear it. But we put it back in our closets or we throw it in a pile. Put it in a goodbye box. You can always look at it later before it goes. And then again, where you're going through your day-to-day, just add items that you know you don't want, that aren't valuable to you. And then when it's full, it's time to go. Okay, again, we talked about taking inventory. I want you to remember, we gotta rephrase our thinking. You know, we're treasure hunting. You're gonna find things you forgot about. You're gonna find sentimental items that are important to you. Maybe you're gonna find your social security card you lost or your passport. So remember, you're treasure hunting. There's gonna be some treasures along the way. And another method is just taking inventory. We're looking at what we have. So I'm gonna use this example, or this that I worked on this closet to kind of go through that process. So it was hard if we went item by item to make decisions on these items. And I was working with the mother of the child. So what I did is I pulled everything out and I put it into grouping. So all the Barbie dolls were together, all the crafts were together. And then, you know, we were checking for duplicates. If there were parts and pieces, we set those in their own little pile. And what I did with the client, I said, let's sit down. Let's pull out the favorite toys. What are the ones that are the non-negotiable? You know, the kids love, you know, they need to stay. And we pulled those out and we started slowly putting them in the closet, zoning out, you know, where can they reach them? You know, of course, if they're larger items or heavy, we have to look at where they're going to go, top or bottom. They're not going to go on the top if they're heavy. And then putting them accessible so they can easily get to them. And then we looked at that pile of stuff on the floor of what was left over. And I asked them, do we really want to put all of this stuff back in the closet? Look how nice it looks. Some items were relocated. Some items were then figured out to go to family or friends or donate. So start there and zone it out, see how it looks. And you know, those are your items that are valuable to you. And maybe we have to make some tough decisions on the rest. Oftentimes, you know, I'm going to say that COVID has been really, really hard on us. And when we struggle with mental health concerns and COVID on top of that, on top of, you know, if you have physical impairments, you know, we all sort of have fallen back some. We've backslide, and myself included. I've been working on my own journey of getting through the COVID, what I call the COVID cloud. So again, no judgment. So when we go into homes, and I'm going to use this as an example, and there's lots of trash buildup or packages, maybe you ordered stuff and you haven't even opened the boxes or they're just empty boxes. You know, I want you to go on a donate or discard hunt. Don't worry about putting anything else anywhere. Brush it aside, move it into a box if you have to and look at it later. But I want you to go and I want you to pull out the things you know are trash. And I'm talking about that junk mail, if it's torn, if it's stained, if it's broken. Or, you know, maybe consider looking at a donate hunt. So just going through an example I'll use is in a closet, you know, I go, let's go section by section. I want you to just pull out the items you know you don't love. Just pull them out, put them in a bag or a box and have them ready. And then we can talk about the rest of the stuff. But what you're going to see there is that by just pulling out those items that are no longer valuable to you that need to be donated or discarded, is that you're going to create space to work in. Now, I want you to think big, and my clients tend to challenge me on this. So they'll give me a tour of the house, and then, you know, they're like, oh, but we don't need to look at the basement. We don't need to go there. Oh, we don't need to go into the garage. No, okay, don't worry about it. Because it's very overwhelming for them. But oftentimes, what I find on our main level spaces is that we have Christmas stuff plugging things up. We have seasonal clothing that maybe needs to be rotated. Maybe there's clothes that, you know, are going to be for the next kid coming, but they don't need to necessarily be in our main spaces. And so I encourage people, with the help of others, because it's a big task, is to start off in some of those storage basements or catch-all rooms or garages, because oftentimes what I find, empty packaging, you know, who keeps the big boxes for their tools that they bought, or maybe the TV box they don't really need, or at least needs to be broken down to create space. Sometimes there's old camping equipment that maybe you haven't used in years. You're going to find things that aren't as valuable to you. In your main space, a lot of those items are going to be current. They're going to be more, there's going to be a greater sense of attachment there. So again, thinking big outside the box. And while you're doing that, what you're doing is you're creating space for those items that, you know, are more that you don't need at your fingertips to be moved to those spaces. And you're going to create space in your main level or where your hub is. I'm going to talk to you about some trends of some of the items that I see clients discard and donate. And one thing I want you to think of, the bigger the better. So when we're going into a space, we're always looking, you know, okay, I want to organize my jewelry. Well, we can definitely help you with that, but that doesn't take up a lot of space. So we're looking for some of those larger stagnant items, those big comforters or sleeping bags that maybe we're not using anymore, stuffed animals, large kitchen appliances. If you're in a pantry, you know, looking at that snow cone maker, you know, are you really going to use that with the grandkids? Or would you rather take them out for ice cream? How do you see yourself spending your time? Formal work attire. That's something we're seeing is that agencies and businesses are getting more and more casual. Also, so many people are working from home now. The consignment shops, they're not even open to taking some of that formal work attire. Old electronics. Now, and this is another one. I want to let you know that Goodwill will accept old electronics, and they will, you know, destroy your information. They're certified to do that, but you have to pay for some of those tube TVs. Those are going to need to go to comp renew. But again, oftentimes what I see is people say, you know, I think there might be information on there or photos. I don't know, I'm not sure. And I encourage you, go to Geek Squad at Best Buy, you know, go take it somewhere to a shop that works on electronics and have them transfer over that data. Obsolete paperwork. Again, this is something I find in those catch-all spaces. Yes, you know, we encourage saving your taxes anywhere from 3 to 7 years. But, you know, do we need our taxes from 20 years ago? And could we get those out of those spaces? Again, like paperwork, that's, you know, not important. It's not relevant. It's not, you know, if you can easily access it electronically, if you need it, or, you know, to get it medical records, you can request it as needed. You know, again, you're not keeping that. And please, 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 when you're going through your paperwork, I want you to take it out of the envelope, pull out all those extras they give you with your explanation of benefits, with all the disclosures, get those in the recycle bin. That does not have your information on it, and it's going to create space. So please don't file those away, file or pile. And then those work items. So some of us started to do some different, take on some different hobbies during COVID. I, for one, took on cross stitching. I tried. I started and I didn't finish it, and I realized this is not my jam. I am not into this. But I kept looking at it like, oh, I paid money for it. I started it. It's a project, and, you know, and I felt guilty about it. It was working my brain. That stuff's got to go. I said it's got to go into the hands of someone else who's going to appreciate it. So think about those items, those projects maybe you didn't finish, that you just look at and stare at. There's books you didn't read that really you don't know if you're going to get around to it or if you have the time for it. And again, those are working our brains. So let's work on processing those and trying to get some of those out of the home. Is it worth being stressed for? Again, decluttering, that can be so stressful and intimidating for clients. So I want you to try managing your mindset. Remember, we are evaluating items. So decluttering or organizing or evaluating, it's an opportunity for a better quality of life. More stuff ultimately means more of our time, our energy, and possibly our money, replacing some of those items that we can no longer find due to the clutter. I want you to cast a vision for what matters to you most. And if the line of questioning isn't helpful for you, I want you to ask yourself, will keeping this help me lead the life I envisioned? Thank you so much today for listening to my presentation, and I'm going to keep it open here a moment for questions, and then I'm going to hand it over to Tara to give you some more information about their upcoming thrift sale. to help you clear out your home and your brain clutter for a better quality of life.
So yeah, folks were definitely resonating with what you were sharing.
Oh,
one of our
great.
attendees was saying they collect or they keep all of their greeting cards, thousands of greeting cards. Glad they're not alone.
Let's start there.
Right.
We start there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about greeting cards because this is a thing. It's a thing for a lot of my clients. My own personal rule and how I, with my son as well, is, is there a thoughtful message written on the greeting card, or is it something that, somebody signed their name? Because if somebody wrote me a thoughtful message, that, I like to retain that memory. Again, there's no one way of doing this, but it's one thing to consider is, was there a thoughtful message or intention with that card that was important to you? Because the cards are going to keep coming. If you're getting Christmas cards, you're on that list. They're going to be coming every year. And that's something, and I'm honest with my friends and family. I'm like, I place my greeting cards on my mantle for display because it brings me joy. And then I let them go because I want to make room for next season. So again, remind yourself too, with greeting cards, they're going to keep coming. And the greeting cards, it's just like any other gift. The action is in the giving. And remind yourself, you're not throwing away the person. You're not throwing away the memory. Of course, if there's items, I have some cards from my grandmother who's since passed, and I've held on to those. A few things with her handwriting that just bring me joy, and I want to keep them. It's non-negotiable. So it's okay to keep. Oftentimes when I work with clients, we put all the sentimental stuff aside. So we don't even get into greeting cards. That we're just going to put all the greeting cards aside. I'm like, we're not even going there. So again, how much space is it taking up? If it's not taking a lot of space, maybe you don't need to go through those right now. Start with something easy and see where you get.
How would you recommend addressing? So your partner, your roommate, your family member maybe has different thoughts on what to keep and what to not keep.
I can't tell you how many times I've played the mediator between family members, spouses and partners, parents and children, roommates. And what I tell people is it's all about compromise. And again, we all have stuff. What I see is people start pointing fingers. Oh, well, you have too much of this and you have too much of that. And I want you to maybe try to avoid that blaming or pointing fingers at each other, because that's just going to cause some more stress for you. What I often tell clients is we got to reach a compromise and maybe sit down and talk with them and say, I'm going to start, lead as an example. I'm going to start clearing out some of my clutter, and hopefully this is something that we can talk about and showcase to them the items that you're moving out. Show them what your actions and accomplishments and your spaces. So even when I have people, like it might be a spouse or partner that one's asking for help, the other one's questioning service. Once I do one session, that questioning spouse or partner, they are sold because they can see that visual difference. Again, it's figuring out some compromises. So figure out what's bugging you most with your housemate or your roommate, and really focus on those areas when having those discussions. Avoid pointing fingers and figure out a level of compromise. And remember, we all have different clutter thresholds. Some people like having a little bit of chaos and mess. My ADHD clients, again, that's something where I'm like, it's okay to have some mess. If you've got kids, it's okay to have some mess and chaos. That's just real life. Hopefully you find that helpful.
Great. Are there job opportunities doing this type of work, or even volunteering for folks that like this kind of
Absolutely. Yes. We do. We are actually looking to hire right now. So if you're interested, please contact me. You can go through the website, or my email is right there, or you can give us a phone call. Again, volunteering, a volunteer basis or a contractual basis, we would discuss that further, what that would look like. Of course, we do background checks. We always, clear for central registry, and there would be some paperwork to fill out. So contact us either on our website, email, and myself or Shannon, who's my assistant. She will contact you and talk to you about next steps. We'll set up an interview.
And maybe the last question, it looks like, what are your tips for maintaining a clean space after decluttering?
This is awesome. Maintenance is a hard thing. And when I tell clients between sessions, they're like, what do you want me to work on? And some don't. Some are like, no, I'm done. I'll wait till you get here. But the one thing I'm like, ultimately, it was like, work on maintaining the space that you have, figuring out that new flow to the space or the drawer or wherever it is. Maintenance, again, is setting up timers. And I work with some of my ADHD clients to do different scheduling techniques and building up like a calendar of structuring out their time with those bucket days or bucket times of when to tidy. That could be something, maybe you set a reminder in your phone or you write in your planner that, every night, I take 15 minutes to tidy up the kitchen. It's not all or nothing. So again, with maintenance piece, it is a hard part. So setting a timer for 15 minutes, and I'll talk to you about that. Is that, some of those main spaces. Take 15 minutes to gather your laundry. Take 15 minutes to tidy the kitchen or where your desktop. So set a timer, put it in your calendar, and then know that we all backslide. It's okay. We're going to have those backslide moments where the system may fall apart a little bit, and that's all right. But, try to get ahead of it before it gets ahead of you. So working on, maybe then you need to schedule out a little bit more time, 30 minutes to work on it, put it in your calendar, and get it back to where you want it to be. And I think now we're going to talk to Tara, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about this awesome opportunity.
Yes.
With Sheldon House here to clear out the clutter, the brain clutter, the home clutter, all the clutter.
Awesome.
Evaluate them.
Yes.
Remember to evaluate.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kate. That was awesome. I know for me, I definitely resonated with some of those things. So it was, super helpful to hear some good tips and tricks and ways to get started. We want to thank you all for giving your morning to us. Again, this will be on Facebook a little bit later, so feel free to share that on your Facebook channel with folks that you think might enjoy this topic or enjoy learning more about it. If you'd like to learn more from Kate and maybe work with Moxie Life Organizing, please reach out to her. The contact info is all on the screen there. We'll make sure to share that as well in the post a little bit later. Also, as Kate was saying, as you start to declutter your spaces, we have a really great opportunity for you. As Kate mentioned, Sheldon House is organizing a thrift sale. That's a tongue twister. A thrift sale benefiting Sheldon House on June 25th. We're going to be holding that at the Cherry Health Wyoming Clinic. It's right on Burlingame on June 25th. And we'll share some more details about that over the upcoming days and weeks. So stay tuned for that. Also, if you're interested in learning more about Sheldon House and the work that we're doing supporting the lives of those living with mental illness here in Kent County, we would love to tell you more. You can sign up for one of our monthly discovery tours, and that information is also on our website and on our social media pages. So again, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Big shout out to Kate.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
It was fun.
That was really great. We enjoyed it. So we hope you enjoyed it as well. And have a great Take Time Tuesday. Take time for yourself today. And we'll talk to you hopefully soon. Thanks.